Welcome back, everyone, to another explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're looking at a real masterclass in storytelling. We're taking one of the absolute oldest narrative tropes in the book, the classic cat and mouse rivalry, and turning it totally on its head. Today, we're going to break down a brilliant pitch for a 3D animated cartoon called The Cat and Mouse Alliance. Let's look at exactly how this story builds momentum, establishes its tone, and delivers a pretty surprising message.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture a bright, colorful house. The fundamental question driving this entire concept is, well, what happens when a classic rivalry goes totally off the rails? I mean, we've all seen the traditional setups, right? The cat chases the mouse endlessly, no real resolution, just running in circles. But this blueprint, it completely modernizes that familiar trope. It takes a super predictable conflict and turns it into a totally dynamic, unexpected narrative.
All right, Section 1, meet Max and Benny.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how perfectly our dual protagonists contrast before the inevitable chaos begins. Every great story needs a catalyst, right? Here, a tantalizing piece of cheese is stolen straight from the kitchen. On one side, we've got Max, a truly clever cat. He's observant, quick, and immediately notices his kitchen domain has been breached. And opposing him is Benny, a highly mischievous mouse. He's bold, he's daring, and he kicks off the whole plot by swiping that cheese. They're perfectly balanced opposites, fundamentally designed to drive a really fast-paced, high-stakes story.
Moving right along, Section 2, the hilarious house chase.
Let's move to the chase and see how this builds. Max spots the missing cheese, and boom, the chase is on. There is a perfectly chaotic, escalating geography to this pursuit. Step 1, it starts right at the scene of the crime, the kitchen. Step 2, they crash out into the living room. Step 3, the chaos literally bursts through the doors into the garden. And finally, Step 4, they scale all the way up to the rooftop. Notice how the physical environment expands step by step alongside the rising stakes? We're constantly moving faster and moving way higher.
And how exactly is Benny staying one step ahead? Through pure, rapid-fire creativity. It's a relentless barrage of visual comedy. We've got Benny zooming across the floorboards in toy cars, floating completely out of reach on balloons, slipping and sliding away on soap bubbles, and, get this, even shredding on skateboards. You can practically see the wildly exaggerated reactions and hear the funny sound effects driving the scene as they accidentally create this massive, ridiculous mess all around the house.
Actually, let's pause for a second, because we need to look at an absolutely crucial rule here. The core parameter of this slapstick universe is family-friendly fun. That means zero violence and absolutely no injuries. Max keeps falling into these wildly funny situations as he's totally outsmarted by Benny's cricks, but he never actually gets hurt. Keeping the physical stakes strictly comedic ensures the tone remains incredibly light, joyful, and completely accessible for all ages.
But then, just as we hit the absolute peak of this rooftop pursuit, when the chaos is at a maximum and the house is a total disaster, everything freezes. What could possibly interrupt this massive momentum? What actually stops the chase?
Bam! A hungry raccoon enters the house. This is the big plot twist. This isn't just a random gag thrown in for laughs, it's a vital narrative agitation. Up until now, Max and Benny have been totally focused on each other, right? But the introduction of this raccoon represents a much bigger shared problem. It instantly forces a massive paradigm shift in the story, completely pivoting our protagonists away from conflict and straight toward collaboration.
Faced with this new intruder, Max and Benny suddenly realize their little squabble over a tiny piece of cheese is nothing compared to a raccoon tearing up their home. They work together to solve the problem, combining the cat's cleverness and the mouse's mischief. And in doing so, they actually become friends. It brings the narrative to this beautifully heartwarming close, ending with both characters sharing snacks and just laughing together right in the middle of the giant mess they just made.
Section 3, Pixar Quality Animation Style.
And this brilliantly illustrates why this pitch feels so premium. It has a highly specific aesthetic vision. We are talking Pixar quality 3D animation here. That means smooth, fluid movements paired with really dynamic cinematic camera movements to capture all that fast-paced action. Combine that with bright colors and cheerful background music, and it guarantees the atmosphere remains relentlessly positive. It really elevates it from a simple cartoon into a highly polished cinematic experience.
Finally, Section 4, the power of teamwork. So the crucial point is really captured in this exact moral. Teamwork and friendship are more important than winning. That's what this whole explainer builds toward. This entire sequence of cartoon chaos is ultimately framed as a metaphor for our own everyday conflicts.
You know, sometimes we get so caught up in winning a trivial argument, our own little piece of cheese, that we completely miss the bigger picture. Sometimes the person you're competing against is exactly the person you need an alliance with to solve a much bigger problem.
Which leaves us with a final thought to take from the colorful house of Max and Benny directly into your real world. Who is the Benny to your Max, and what raccoon could you defeat together? Think about the unexpected alliances you might be overlooking in your own life. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it sparks some great ideas for you. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you next time.